on.
We know what we're doing.
How you doing, folks? I'm James. This is Steven here. Mustard Slinger Sports coming to you for a second year here from AMON Carter Stadium. Where today the TCU Horned Frogs are going to be taking on the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks at 2:30. And Steve, this is going to be the second meeting between these two teams.
Yes, it is, James. Back in 2008 was their first time playing each other, and TCU just basically steamrolled the Lumberjacks. Was it 67-7 victory they had?
Right.
And then TCU comes into this game. You know, they were number 2 in the nation last week. Now they're coming in number 3. They really didn't impress voters too much with their 23-17 victory over Minnesota. But it was on the road against a good big team. And, you know, Minnesota will be in the top 25 by the end of the year. So it's not really, I would say, a bad thing that they bumped down, but they do need an impressive victory this week to bump back up and impress the voters.
Well, yeah, you know, and they do need to impress the voters, but we also got to remember, too, here, TCU does have a 9-game winning streak, which is good for third best in the nation. And they've also got a 13-game home win streak for openers, which is the 5th best in the nation so far right now.
Yes.
And we're also looking for TCU today to go to 2-0, which will be the 9th time in the last 13 seasons, which is pretty impressive in my book. And they're led by this perennial Heisman candidate of theirs, and number 2, Trayvon Boykin, their quarterback.
Yes, they are. Trayvon Boykin's entering this game, James, with the nation's longest streak with a touchdown pass in 16 straight games. Last week was his best game, but hey, he had 242 passing yards, just a hair under 100 rushing yards. Dual threat, you know, that's what Boykin is. That's why he's a Heisman candidate. And, well, you know, Minnesota's defense, maybe we should give them a little bit of credit. Over the past 2 years, they're the only team to really limit this high-tempo offense, James. And SFA, well, they probably watch a lot of game film from that to maybe try to limit Boykin in this offense today.
Yeah, you know, and Stephen F. Austin, if we look at the opponent going back to last week when they played Northern Arizona, you know, they spotted up a 3-touchdown lead to get out of the game. They came back and battled back and had a chance to do something. But the problem that they had last week is the same problem I think they're going to have today, Steve. Yes. They just gave up the big plays. I mean, they had 10 plays of over 20 yards, and they had 3 touchdown strikes that were 36 yards last week. So look for Boykin, maybe Jacoby Listenby or somebody to have a big game here. Dodson on the other side and everything.
Take advantage of big playability.
Exactly. You know, and one of the strong suits here for the Stephen F. Austin team, though, is the offensive line.
Yes, well, what I think is the most important key to this game for Stephen F. Austin is to control that clock, time of possession. Their offensive line combined, 115 starts between all of them. Not just in the Southland Conference that they're in, but the whole nation, probably one of the most experienced offensive line groups in the country. And they're going to need that group to play well today to keep Boykin and that TCU offense off the field.
Yeah, and you know, and Stephen F. Austin, they're not a slousy team for an FCS team. This is a perennial team that could make the playoffs, right,
yes.
Steve?
Yes, they are, yes. They've done it time after time, and with the group they have returning on offense, I mean, I don't see why they can't do the same this year.
But you know, they do have a little bit of a tough streak. They've got some tough opponents, they've got to play on the road and everything else with that. But let's move on. I mean, basically, the 3 points to this game that we think are going to be the big issues that are going to help TCU prevail in this game. And number 1, and first and foremost, is Boykin needs to look like the Heisman contender that he's built up to be.
Yes.
You know, last year, like you said, last week, he did put up some impressive numbers. I mean, he almost totaled for all but 111 of the team's all total yards.
Yes.
But he didn't look as good efficiency as he did.
He was overthrowing receivers. A couple times he's thrown off his back foot, trying to hurry up a throw. He needs to be more calm and cool back there and trust his offensive line and hit these wide open receivers. He's got the playmakers. He needs to trust his offensive line a little bit more. Trust his feet work.
Yeah, and this is a game where he does have to impress the voters to do something with everything.
This isn't one of the type of games where he needs to put up a monster numbers, 300 passing yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, on the ground maybe get 100 rushing yards. That's the way you perform as a Heisman Trophy contender when you're playing some Western talent.
But you know, and then you have the fluke games, you know, you look at the Texas Tech game with the 7 touchdowns he had last year, so you never know really what can happen with this guy. Exactly. He does have an immense amount of talent. The number 2 thing that we think is going to be the most important thing that's going to happen is this young TCU defense has to play good. Yes. We've talked about this SFA line on offense, and I think they've had 115 games they played together, all as seniors and everything. Yes. So this is a good bunch. The linebackers need to step up their play. We got to remember, up until last week, the TCU was the only team in FBS that didn't have a linebacker that had started in a college game. And since they've been keeping statistics in 1937, Steve, what do you think about that? TCU only trails who?
Alabama.
And they trail Alabama for what?
For
total defense, right?
Yes, total defense, right. That is pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive. You know, the Rolling Tide, they've had the top defense 6 times, and TCU is ranking only 1 time behind them with 5 in the last 18 seasons.
And you know, head coach Gary Patchen, he loves himself some defense. He takes pride in that.
That is his forte. Yes, sir, it is. And now the third thing is, it's a term you're going to start to hear a lot more as things start coming towards the rankings. It's a term we talked about last year. It's a term that I think kind of got its hashtag last year, if you want to say,
Yes.
and it is ground control. And you know, you got to think, the TCU last week they opened up with the Gophers and they had 5 punts and a fumble recovery in the first 6 possessions that the Gophers had. They were only able to score 7 points out of that whole thing.
Yes.
I'm sorry, no, 10 points because they had the touchdown and then they got the field goal after
Yes.
they had the 35 on the 8-yard line
Yes.
that they failed on the run when they kicked the field goal. But through this one game in 2015, Steve, what do you think about the TCU offense compared to last year?
Well, I mean, hey, it's just one game, and then we're playing one of the best defensive teams in the Big Ten on the road. First game, you can say what it is. First game jitters, a little bit of rustiness. So I'm getting them some slack from last week. But so far through this one game, they're averaging 203 rushing yards. Not too bad. 246 passing yards per game, while allowing 144 yards on the ground and 197 yards through the air. Their Minnesota offense itself is not too shabby.
No, it's not at all. And just to let you know, we'll be doing our post-game show. Hopefully we'll be able to get in the locker room, get you a few comments from the players during our post-game show, and then we'll also post the complete uncut versions of whatever the players have to say after the game's over and everything. Steve, you want to make any predictions, close out with anything? I mean, it's our first game of the season. You want to go wild and just throw something out there and say, hey.
I don't think it's going to be too bold or getting too wild, but I would say TCU victory by anywhere from 30 to 40 points. If SFA can't control the clock and pound the ground, it's going to be pretty ugly.
All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you after the game, okay?